everyone loves to toss around the phrase, you need a business plan. Unfortunately, that's just 5 words that mean absolutely nothing on their own. Telling an aspiring entrepreneur that they need a business plan is like telling a football player that they need to run some plays in order to get in the end zone, or telling a singer that they need some songs in order to write an album or have a concert. It's mostly common sense. The key is, what plays should a football team run in order to score? What should their strategy be? And what songs should a singer write, or sing for that matter, in order to have a concert? And what price should the concert tickets even be? When it comes to starting a candle business or any business, it's more than just knowing that you need a business plan. The question is, how? What things should you be thinking about? What sets you apart different from others? What types of products to make and for what price? Where to get supplies? Where and how to market your products to get more business? And for someone just starting, what does that timeline even look like? I could go on and on and on. So today, my plan is to help you with your plan. I hope you stay tuned, and if you have to pause, go back, rewind, and watch it all again, go ahead, take notes. It's free. All right, so let's start with what we're going to talk about and how it fits into starting and growing your candle business. And there's this great quote about starting a business, and you got to forgive me, I'm not sure who said it. I'll try to find out. But the quote is, if you like your first product, you probably waited too long to start. In other words, don't strive for perfection right off the bat. Just get started. Now, with that being said, let's talk about some of the major benefits to starting a candle business. Yes, even today. First of all, there's a low barrier to entry when it comes to starting this kind of business. Why? Because it's relatively inexpensive to start compared to large businesses, large corporations, right? You can start it at home, in your kitchen, in a basement. There's a lot of options when it comes to starting this type of business. There's a lot of places you can purchase supplies, both online and locally. There's also a ton of resources out there, such as this YouTube channel and several other resources out there as well, where you can learn how to do this craft from scratch, but not just do the craft, also turn it into a business. It's also a very scalable business, meaning you can start off small and grow kind of at whatever pace or rate you're comfortable with. The sky truly is the limit. The candle industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, so you can be as small as you want and comfortable and cozy, or you can grow and grow and grow and scale this to your heart desires. You can grow this into a large business, you can keep it a small business, or you can just do this on the side as a part-time hustle. And we're going to talk about all that here in just a little bit. It's also a very profitable business. As I mentioned, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Regardless of the size that you want to take your business, there's plenty to go around. And finally, and probably most importantly, it's fun. It's a craft. You're making a product yourself, selling something that you made, and you get a lot of satisfaction out of doing that, especially when you pair it with starting and growing your own business. But if you're watching this video, I probably don't have to oversell you on the benefits, advantages, and reasons to start a candle business. You're already here, you're already interested. So let's talk about actually how to create this business plan and some different ways to go about it. One of the best ways that I like to illustrate the process of starting your business from scratch, starting at the very beginning, is to actually do this on a timeline. When I'm doing my one-on-one consultations, I like to talk about this concept because a lot of candle makers and those interested in turning it into a business are often confused on where to start and which things to do at what point. Do I start making candles first? Do I worry about the business side first? When should I do testing? When should I work on my marketing materials? When do I need to get registered as a business? When do I need insurance? How do I work on my website? There's so many things that when you think about it, it's like a scatter chart. There's just all these things all over the place, and it's like, which one do I choose? Because when you're first getting started, it's so overwhelming. It's like a kid in a candy store. There's just so many things that grab your attention, and it can be hard to just focus on one thing. So the reason I like to do this on a timeline is because in truth, you actually should be doing both parts of the timeline, the candle production side and the candle business side, at the same time. You're just going to do them in different stages across the timeline. And yeah, there'll be some overlap. That will help you stay focused and obtaining each one of your milestones by doing different things at different stages. And I promise you, it will make it seem much less overwhelming when you take all these pieces and put it into a plan. So across the top of this timeline, we're going to talk about the production side. So everything when it comes to making and testing your products, product development from start to finish. On the bottom part of the timeline, we're going to be talking about the business aspects. This is your legal matters, your administrative things, business side of running a candle business, right? So you got your candle business. Think of it that way. Now, as I talk about these, I will overlay the timeline and show you kind of where they stagger. Now, I should say this is very flexible. This is one example, and this is how, if I were starting a candle business, I would basically create my timeline. It's flexible though. You can change it up as you need to. It might differ for everyone depending on the type of business you're starting, what your ultimate goal is, how large you want to grow your business. You might need to focus in different areas at a different time or for a longer period of time. But for me, this is generally a pretty good timeline that I would recommend to most people. So the first thing I think you should do, which is going to surprise many of you, is not on the candle side. It's actually on the business side. And that is figuring out your first initial budget. Because if you don't know a budget to start with, you don't even know how to get started or how much you can spend to start this craft. Before you even make your first candle, you have to have an idea of how much you are willing to invest to get started, because you're going to need some supplies, you're going to need things to get you going. So you have to have an idea of your budget. Can your budget change? Of course. As your business grows, your budget's going to change. Take some time, sit down and figure out how much money can I commit to this new craft, this new project, even if I were to assume it didn't work out. How much money can I commit to get started? Is it a couple $100? Is it $1,000? Is it $5,000? Whatever you want to set aside to get yourself going, and earmark those funds strictly for this project, for this endeavor. So that is step number one, and I think that should be step number one for everyone. Step number two is on the production side, and this is basically getting started. Now that you're aware of your budget, you want to sample some products. So get a few sample waxes, some basic supplies, purchase a candle kit if you would like to. The point is you want to spend a little bit of money getting a little bit of supplies to see if you even like this a little bit. If you don't, then you'll get the rest of your budget back and you can find something else to try. But you have to find out if this is something you're actually going to enjoy from the very beginning. Personally, I found candle making much more enjoyable after I got out of the sampling testing kit phase. But either way, you can get a rough idea. Is this something I even enjoy a little bit? And when it comes to supplies, we're talking about, pouring pitchers, heat guns, ways to stir, wicks, wax, jars, even little wick tools to help place the wicks and keep your wick straight during the cooling process. The ones I recommend, by the way, I'm sure you've heard it before, is Norden Candle Supply. They sell fantastic wick setters and wick clips to help you with candle making. And I've got a couple videos talking about them. One is a video that kind of overviews their products in general. They are awesome. That's actually what's being used behind me. So you can see this just holds the wick in place, and they fit the jars that you're using perfectly. So these ones fit this jar, but no matter what jar you're using, you can go to the website and get the one specifically for your jar. It's awesome. And then here's the wick setter. I don't have a wick on me right now, but you would place the wick in here, and I don't know if you can see this. You'll put this on top, and then you'll plunge the wick in and pull it back out, and the wick will be dead center. It's awesome. So again, check out the video that goes over that. Fantastic products. I make hundreds, thousands of candles at a time, and they're amazing. They're amazing. So I'd highly recommend them. They've got other products too, by the way. They've got a label guide, and it helps you make sure label's going straight every single time. So check that out as well. Really cool. Anyways, when I talk about supplies, that's the kind of things I'm talking about. There's so many tools, gadgets, supplies, materials to help you get started candle making. And the more you grow and scale, the more of these tools and supplies you might end up using, or you might change them out for other things, whatever suits your needs. And by the way, throughout this video, I'll be referring to a lot of steps throughout this process, including even the previous one I mentioned, getting some basic waxes and supplies, getting some kits. Anything I talk about like that, I obviously can't go into super depth in this overview video, but I'm going to be outlining the timeline, the things you should be thinking about, the goals, the milestones. For specific details on some of these, I have a variety of videos on all of the topics we're going to cover. So go to my channel, hit subscribe if you're not already, and then go to the videos. You can see all the different videos that I have covering all these topics in different playlists as well. So anyways, if any of these topics come up and you're like, well, okay, he says to get supplies, but where do I do that? What supplies do I need? I've got videos on that, so don't worry. Just go to those, look for those details. All right, so after you get out of this getting started, feeling it out stage, you're going to flip back to the business side of the timeline. And here is where you really should make a decision, and you can change your decision, but at least at this point, think about, is this something I want to just make a part-time thing, maybe a little side hustle, or is this something I really want to commit to and grow this into a full business? Why do you want to think about that this early on? Well, it's going to help kind of steer the direction of the rest of these steps. It will also guide your budget a little bit, because if you're going to take it a little bit more seriously, you're going to spend more time in some of these stages or phases than you would if you're just going to kind of do it on the side. You've got time to figure it out. Just get an idea at this point though. And if you really aren't sure at this point, because it is very early on, you've only done a few test candles, if you're still not sure, that's okay. Take this and plug it into various parts of the timeline and just keep asking yourself that question as you move throughout. The next thing is still on the business side of the timeline. And that is deciding or thinking about what you want for your brand, your niche, or your theme, your target market, in other words. So do you plan to just make some kind of generic candles and mass appeal? Or are you looking for a specific theme to your candles? Maybe like Carrie, you've seen in some videos, has a haunted theme or a villain type theme. Or check out Matt from Dude Candles or Matt from History Candles. There's a lot of themed based candle businesses out there, and they are fantastic because if you know your audience, you know your market, it's much easier to sell to that market because you're making products specifically for them, not for everyone. It will also guide the rest of your choices along the timeline. For example, your packaging, your presentation, the scents you choose, the type of vessel, the color, anything, the names of your candles, right? So at this point, try to identify, is there a niche or a theme that you want to attach to your brand, to your business? The earlier you can figure this out, the better, because you're going to spend a lot of time on this part of starting your business and really scaling your business throughout. Can you change it? Of course. Like pretty much anything on this timeline, you have the right to change your mind about anything. But the earlier you can lock this in, the more you can go full bore on it and the better off you'll be. So, am I suggesting you need a niche or a theme? No. Do I recommend it? For most, yes. But that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be super specific. For example, you don't have to have a sport theme. You don't have to have a villain theme, right? But try to have something consistent about your brand that kind of ties everything together. It makes it a lot easier for brand consistency and brand loyalty to do that. Now, one thing I also want to mention, because everyone always asks about trends, still today, by far, the number one factor that customers care about when it comes to candles is the fragrance part. They care more about fragrance than anything else. However, commercial use of candles has increased significantly as well because of spa and massage type candles, aromatherapy type candles. So there's a lot of candles being used not just for home fragrance, but for the experience as well. It heightens your senses, it can be relaxing, it can be calming, as well as more and more every year, customers are buying candles for home decor, for the aesthetics, to fit in their modern or contemporary household or their farm household or whatever the case may be. They do purchase it as decor, not just for home fragrance. So again, the point is there's a lot of opportunity here. So find your market, find your niche, find your theme, and go for it. Also, at this point, if you have decided on a brand and a theme and you already have an idea of the business name or what you want to call your candle company, this is also a great time to go ahead and research to see if that domain name is available. And if it is, purchase it. You can purchase it from Google Domains. You can purchase it from GoDaddy and so on. And if you're not sure what a domain is, my domain is blacktiebarn.com. So if you have something in mind that you want, first of all, try to make sure it's available. And if it is, snatch it up. If it's not available, you can try a few variations of it, or you might have to scrap it and go for something else. But you do want something that is unique to you, and you want to make sure it's available before you overcommit all your branding and your marketing to a name you can't really use. All right, so now that you have a little bit better idea of your brand, your identity, your niche, your theme, or whatever the direction you want to take your business, let's get back on the production side of the timeline. At this point, you've got your feet wet a little bit. You've made some candles from some kits. You've sampled or tested some different waxes. At this point, it's really time to start deciding. And again, you can change later if you want, but at this point, it's a good idea to start deciding on what wax you want to start with. What wax are you going to commit to going forward, at least for the foreseeable future? One of the most popular questions everyone sees in Facebook groups, YouTube channels, and my consultations is, what is the best wax? Well, there is no best wax. All waxes have pros and cons, and what's important to one person is not going to be the same to another person. So knowing what you're looking for and knowing what you care the most about and experience in sampling these waxes is the only way to really tell you what wax you're going to like the best. Now, there are three, I would say, primary factors I tell people to consider when they're choosing a wax. The first is, as I mentioned, what do you care the most about? Is it the hot throw? So how strong the wax throws the fragrance? Is it how easy the wax is to work with? Maybe pouring or wicking? Do you want to avoid sinkholes? Do you prefer a certain color? Basically, what's the most important factor to you, right? The other thing to consider is your niche, your theme, your target market. They might demand you use a particular type. If your entire brand is to be kind of organic and earthy and you preach natural and all your scents are based off like woods and mountains or something like that, then you're going to probably want to use something like a soy or a soy coconut, or you might go towards beeswax, or you might have a candle community or customer base that is so focused on the craziest hot throw possible, then you might want to go with paraffin or a parasoy blend, right? So there's your market, your target, your theme is going to also sometimes guide your wax decision. Not always, but sometimes. And then the third and final category is the product type. Meaning, if you're going to make pillar or votive candles that stand alone, those need to be a harder wax generally than a soft wax you would use in a container. So you would use a pillar wax. If you're only going to make container candles, you don't want to use a hard pillar wax. You want to use a soft container wax. And so that one's a little bit more obvious, but it is a main factor. So those are the three main factors. What do you care the most about personally? What does your customer base care the most about? And what type of products are you making? And again, I have videos talking about some of the waxes that I've tested and tried and some recommendations I have. I'll link that video below. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a question in the comment or comment one of your favorite waxes used. So people that are here for the first time have an idea of the variety out there and what a lot of people are recommending. Also on the production side, you got to choose your vessel, right? Your container if you're making container candles. And again, this is why we talked about deciding on your niche or your theme earlier, because that will help guide the look of your products. Now that you have an idea of that, you can choose your vessels, your containers, your jars, right? So they have different shapes, they have different sizes, they certainly have different colors. You can go with concrete, you can go with glass, you can go with porcelain, you can go with tin. There's a lot of options out there and they all have different looks as well. So this is a time to start choosing that. Are you going to add different vessels at some point? Yeah, probably. You might change them entirely. You might add new collections, but find something to start with that you like and also fits your brand or your theme if you already have one. And then we'll talk about how to test all this later. And then one more thing here on the production side at the moment is your scent options. So what type of fragrance do you want your candles to put off? And again, this ties back to why it's important to already have an idea of your theme. One, because certain themes are going to have certain fragrances that make sense for that theme, but also the names that you're going to choose for your candles or your scents are going to be reflective of your theme or your niche as well. So this is a time to start experimenting with scent options. If you already know what your brand identity is going to be, then this is going to be easier for you because you know what you're looking for. At the very least, when you sample fragrances, you'll say, yep, that'll work, or nope, it has nothing to do with what I'm trying to do. If you do not know yet what you want to do with your brand and the direction you want to take it, I have a suggestion that I like to offer everyone that is getting started, because another popular question is, what scents should I choose? Well, I said if you've got a theme or a brand, I would definitely have that guide you first and foremost. But if you don't and you're curious, I like to take fragrances, one from like every major category. That way you offer a variety to customers so that you can appeal to different tastes. So for example, you're gonna want one bakery or gourmand fragrance. You're gonna want a fresh and aromatic fragrance. You'll want a woody fragrance, an earthy fragrance, fruity, a floral, and then a classic like maybe like a lavender or a vanilla or a lavender lemon, or really do some research on classic fragrances and you'll get a bunch of suggestions. I'm probably not giving great ones. And then after that, I like to reserve the 8th through 10th spot for fragrances that you just absolutely love and are unique to you. So if I got my math right on that, that is bakery, fresh, floral, fruity, earthy, woody, classic, and then something unique. That's 8, and I like to tell people to start between 8 and 12, so throw in a few more if you want, and just see how you like them. You're going to probably take some fragrances away over time and add to them. You'll have new collections. This is going to be something that's constantly changing, but that's a good list to kind of get started with. Now we're going to hop back down to the business side of the timeline. In fact, I'm going to put on my business hat for this. This next one is something that no one likes to talk about, but it is important, especially for the rest of the stages coming up, and that is about insurance, business insurance. There's 2 things that I think are important when you're considering insurance. One is that you have at least the general business liability insurance, and 2, try to get product insurance specific to candle making. That means when you go to your insurance broker or insurance company, and I would start locally first, make sure you're transparent to them what type of products you're making, what type of business you have. Because some of them will not cover candle making, and you want to make sure that whatever policy you have will cover you if you ever need it. If you cannot find a local company that works for you, then look online for insurance companies that will cover candle making or other crafts. And again, I will leave links and videos below that go into this topic a little bit more detail. So why is it important to have insurance? Well, whether you are a full business or not, if anyone is going to be testing or burning any of your products that you made, you want to be protected. Yes, you have warning labels on candles. Warning labels are just a requirement than anything. They do not protect you if you make a candle that causes harm or is improperly made or is negligent. There's reasons you need insurance. Just put it that way. Insurance is there in case something happens. At the very least, it's peace of mind. Are you likely going to need it? No. Hopefully not. But But it's good to have that peace of mind. Just talked about insurance, and this next part is the reason why. We're going to flip up to the production side again of the timeline. At this point, I like to start creating my test group of customers. And I call these my first adopters as well, because these customers will stay around with you for a long time often. They test your new products, they give you feedback, they help your business grow. And in fact, I call them early adopters as well, because I will keep them around with a perpetual discount because they helped me. So anyone that becomes part of my pilot, my test group, my early adopters, they're gonna get 25% off for life of all my products. For example, you can use whatever you want. But that encourages them to give you real, valuable feedback, because otherwise you're not going to keep them around. But two, they want to be part of something that's new, something that's growing. And then of course you're thanking them by helping you do that. I have a fairly recent video about how to make the best products, best candles possible, and that is all about creating these test groups and how I go about doing it. So I would watch that video. Again, a lot of these videos I mentioned are going to be linked below. Some of them, if I remember, I'll link up above in a little card that pops at the top of the video. If you click that, it will add it to like a future playlist. All right, so after we've identified this test group, we're going to start making your first round of candles, right? You're going to be in this stage for a long time. This entire product development stage is going to be the largest, but don't worry, you're going to be doing other things at the same time. But while you're in this stage, you're going to be creating your first sets of products, first, second, third sets of products, and you're going to be having other people test them for you and give you feedback. That's the point of the test groups. And you're going to be asking for specific feedback like, what do you think of the fragrance? How strong was the candle? How did the wick perform? How did the candle burn in general? What did you think about the jar I chose? What did you think about the colors or the labels or whatever you want feedback on? This is why it's very, very important, because this sets you up for future success. So now that you've identified who is going to help you for product development, let's start the development. And what you're going to start with is wick testing and wick selection. Everyone's favorite thing. Just kidding, it's not. At this stage, which is actually what I'm doing back behind me, I'm testing a series of different fragrances and different wicks, and this is timely. It's time consuming. Sometimes it's frustrating, but I promise you it gets easier. Once you are confident and you have a lot of experience with your vessels and your wax and your wicks, you have a good starting foundation, a solid starting point, and it gets much easier to repeat good product. So this timeline really gets cut down the longer you're making candles. But at first, it's frustrating. If you have any questions or need help, again, I have consultations. You can find that link below. You go to the website for help. You can ask others in the community. I've got a Facebook group, this YouTube channel. Anywhere, ask questions, not just myself, but others will help you along the way as well. It's a great community. By wick testing, what do I mean? Well, you're going to pour some candles and you're going to start testing various wicks to figure out which ones work best. Now, if you're brand new to this craft, you're probably wondering, what do you mean, which wick? Well, trust me, there are lots of options, and not only a lot of options on the type of wick. For example, there are wicks called HDP, Zinc, LX, CD, CDN. I mean, there's so many, Eco. And then Premier 700 wicks are the ones that I use the most. I also sell them on the website. They work for a variety of waxes. They work best in many waxes. So those wicks, if you are interested, I have sample packs as well on the website. But yeah, Premier 700 is the ones I use the most, but there are a variety. But here's the catch. It's not just choosing the right wick type. It's also choosing the right wick size. There are a lot of sizes in each one of these wick types, and that's going to depend, the size that you choose is going to depend on the size of your candle, the diameter, because each wick size up is usually a thicker wick and creating a wider or a hotter flame, so you're going to get a larger melt pool. So this is why you have to identify the wax you're going to use and the vessel, because that's the combination that you need to know in order to start wick testing. Now, there are other variables as well if you're using additives or sometimes color if you use a lot of it. The fragrance oil you're using and how much can have an impact on wicking. So that's why it's important to start experimenting, start testing as soon as you can. Pretty much right on this timeline. If you want to start a little sooner, that's fine as well. But the idea here is to start testing wicks in the products that you want to make. So in the earlier stages, you've chosen some vessels to start with. You've selected a wax or narrowed it down at least. You've selected some fragrances. So you've got everything you need, all three components, to at least start testing different wicks. Now, it's important to know that this step is done in tandem with the next step and vice versa. You need to be testing your wicks in every time that you change fragrance oils, because fragrance can impact the wick. For example, the jars behind me and the wax that I use often, most of the time, use a Premier 730 or 735 wick. But depending on the fragrance oil, I might need to go all the way down to a 720 or 725 or up to a 740 or 745. Fragrances have different densities, different viscosity to them, and so that can affect the wick. So have a starting point, but make sure that whenever you are testing each of your fragrances, that you're testing a new wick each time. I generally start with the same one that I find works best overall, and then I adjust it if I need to. Speaking of which, that is the next step in the testing, is testing your fragrances. And again, you're doing this in tandem while you're testing wick. So when you're doing a test candle, you're looking for, is the wick burning correctly, but also, how is the fragrance performing? A, do you like it? Oh, it's not. No, this is not. B, is it strong enough? If not, you either need to adjust the wick sometimes or the fragrance oil. You've got your test products going. You're working on your product development. So while this is happening, and by that I mean it takes some time after you make a candle to let them sit and cool. Give them, depending on the wax you're using, it might need to sit for a few days, up to a week or so, before you can start testing them. And then when you do test them, you burn them for 4 hours at a time. Then you got to let them cool again. Then you burn them another 4 hours. So the testing process, depending on how many fragrances and candles that you're making, can take weeks, right? Months. So depending on how long that's taking, let's be efficient and let's get some other stuff done at the same time. So while that's happening on the production side, back underneath the timeline on the business side, there are a few things you can be doing in the meantime. First is locking in that brand identity. We talked about it earlier. You were thinking about it. Now it's time to really commit. This is when you're going to start working on that brand identity. If you haven't chosen a name yet, make sure you choose one. If you haven't picked a look and a feel that you're really locked in, go ahead and do it. You've already chosen some vessels. If you're going to change again, this is the time to do it. If not, make sure you're deciding on colors. Make sure you're deciding on lids. Make sure you're deciding on anything that is really about your brand identity. What do you want people to think about when they see your brand? And if you didn't purchase your domain earlier, this is the time to do it. Also, this is a great time to start thinking about if this is going to be a full-time thing, really even if it's a part-time thing. Do you want to be a sole proprietor? In other words, you're doing business as yourself, and then you just register a fictitious name. For example, if I was a sole proprietor, I would be Wade Thomas, doing business as Black Tie Barn. You're still technically a business, but you're not really doing it with a business structure. And this is how a lot of people start out, especially if they're not sure how serious they want to take it or how far they want to take it. And the next step up would be an LLC, which is a limited liability company. And you would most likely be a single member LLC, which is sort of like a sole proprietor, just with a few other advantages. If you're doing this as a partnership, then you will be a partnership. Probably goes without saying. And after you've kind of settled on a business structure, you would work on getting any local and state licenses. So your business license, a seller's permit, any other kind of business registrations you might need. It will vary by state, city, locale. So I can't tell you exactly where you're at, what they're going to require. But if you just go to your local business office or your local Secretary of State, they can help you kind of tell you what you need and to get you started. It is going to differ everywhere. So that is going to require some legwork, but it's really not as bad as it sounds. There's almost always some kind of local business office that will have some kind of checklist. It makes it a little easier for you to get going. But if all of this seems overwhelming and you're not sure, okay, he said sole proprietorship, he said domain, he said LLC, insurance, business licenses, all this stuff. I've got a video. It's one of the first videos I ever put on this channel a couple of years ago. And it was about how to go about the legal side of starting a candle business. Check that out. It's a pretty good overview video. Again, there are some particulars that vary by your location, but it gives you a pretty good kind of checklist of what you need to be thinking about when it comes to the legal side of things. All right, so after you've kind of got that ball rolling, right, let's start also thinking about your selling platform. You're making some products that you intend to sell and make some money. Well, what's the best way to do that? Starting out, I recommend everyone to try to do some local craft shows or some pop-ups, holiday shows if it's around that kind of season. And the reason is severalfold. One, it's good exposure. So if you're a new company, people see you in your local community or nearby communities, they now become aware of you and your brand. So it's good exposure. It also makes you comfortable. It gets you experience. If you're new to business, new to selling, this gets you comfortable with the whole process. You also, most importantly, in my opinion, learn about your products the best. So you start answering questions that people ask you about your products, and you get so much helpful information during this customer feedback in person. If you see a lot of people picking up a candle and they don't really like it and they put it back, and one is just not selling very much, you probably need to swap it out. On the other hand, if you got one or two candles that everyone seems to love, double down on that one. You know you've got a winner there, right? And you're getting instant feedback, at least on the fragrance and the look, like what people think, first reaction of your products. Even as you scale and grow and you're doing a lot of like in a store or wholesale or online, these shows are a great way to test new products because again, you get instant feedback. But most of you are probably thinking beyond that, like how can I scale this business a little bit more, right? So if we're talking about online, like a website, you've got a couple really major options. You've got Etsy, which is a platform that already has a community, already has an audience, a customer base, and they kind of do most of the work for you in that regard, and you do not have customization. You're not creating your own website. It's already kind of built for you. You're basically just renting space on their giant store, e-store basically, right? Or you can go a different route, which is starting your own website, with your own host, and you design your entire website yourself, customize it, sell your product, ship. You have full control for the most part over it. That's the biggest difference between the two. Now, I have a very, very strong opinion that by far the best option to go long-term is your own website. And the one I recommend the most is Shopify. Most others will recommend that as well. It's feature rich. It's a full platform. It's got great SEO. It's got good customer support. You have there's just anything that you want to do special down the road with plugins or web development, most of them are going to hope you're on Shopify, right? It's just a great platform overall. You have a lot more flexibility, customization. You have more control. It's easier to brand your business that way because you get to design you can put your own logo, you can put your own banners, and you can do some of that on Etsy as well. But you get to pick your colors. You design the website just like you want, every aspect of it. On the flip side, there's Etsy. Now, as I mentioned, Etsy, it's kind of a turnkey solution out of the box. You don't really do a lot of customization. Yes, you can title your products, add descriptions, add product photos and videos if you want, but that's pretty much it. You lose a lot of your branding. And then another negative of Etsy is when you do recommend to people that my shop's on Etsy, right? And then you send them to Etsy, you're not just sending them to yours, you're sending them to a platform that now has them looking at a bunch of other similar brands as well. So I like a website much better, but here's the thing. Just because I recommend Shopify or your own website much more over Etsy in general, like overall, I don't always recommend that it's the best way to start because it does require a lot more work and a lot more time to get started. So my general advice to new candle business owners, especially ones that do not have a lot of experience running a website or e-commerce, is to start off with Etsy. Get your feet wet, get products out there, start getting some sales, right? Start the experience. And while your Etsy shop is running, you can slowly be working on building your Shopify site in the background. Then you can switch it. A lot of businesses start that way. And then another thing to think about is not just your website or craft shows, is wholesale. Now, I wouldn't recommend wholesale right off the bat. You're gonna want some time to get experience, to make sure you're efficient, make sure you can scale up for a little bit more volume, work out your pricing a little bit, particularly get your pricing down a little bit. But ultimately, if wholesale, high volume is something you enjoy doing, that's another good avenue. And if you're not familiar with what wholesale is, you're basically selling your products for roughly half as much to other businesses, and then they mark them up and retail them themselves. You're not making your money on high margins, you're making your money on high volume. So that is a great way to grow your business and scale as well, but I don't generally recommend starting it right out of the gate. Also, while you're testing, while you got the business ball rolling, let's get back on the production side. And this is a great time to start deciding on your product and customer experience. So what do I mean by that? First of all, I'm gonna take my hat off. Maybe not. This is a great time to start thinking about your packaging, your labeling, your presentation. You already have products that are in the works, being tested. You're already working on your selling platform, right? So there's a lot of things already in motion. So it's a great time to start thinking about how to package these products when they go out for shipment, for an order. You might keep it simple, very cost effective. You might just wrap them up, put them in a box, and out they go. But do you want custom branding? Do you want custom tissue paper? Do you want custom boxes? Do you want custom shipping boxes or product boxes? Do you want to add any literature inside, like something about you and your business? Do you want to add a business card? Do you want to have a candle care card? There's so many examples of things you can include in your packaging. Depending on your niche, your theme, your market, what you're trying to create as far as an experience goes, this is going to differ for everyone. Have fun with this. You might do very little, you might do a lot. You do you. Start working on that during the testing phase as well, while you're kind of in tandem working on your website. You don't want to always just work on one thing and one thing only. You're like, work on your website for a little bit, take a break, go make a few test products, take a break, work on packaging. Honestly, again, this is just general timeline advice. You can really do whatever you want. Now that you've decided on your packaging, your presentation, you've picked a selling platform, you have an idea of what you're doing from a business side as well, let's start the launch prep. Let's start getting ready to open your business to the public. By public, I mean like online or really anyone, right? You're gonna start selling candles. Now that you've chosen Etsy or website, you need to start working on the design, the customization, the stuff we talked about earlier, right? Your layout, you're gonna start working on product pricing if you haven't already done that. In order to do that, you need to have a good idea of what it costs you to make your product. So hopefully by this point, you are tracking your expenses, you're tracking your inventory, and you have an idea, like a per unit cost. How much is this costing me to make every candle or batch of candles, right? If you make candles in batches of 4, divide that by 4, that's your total cost, right? But you're going to use that information to help you price your products accordingly. I do have some videos on the channel that talk about pricing. There are several ways to go about doing it. One of my favorites is it's kind of a hybrid approach. I like to know what my cost is and make sure my costs are covered, double, quadruple, whatever makes sense. But also, you need to make sure that pricing works in your industry, works in your market. Are your customers going to spend what you're asking them to spend? If not, then it's pointless, right? So you got to know your market. You have to have an idea of what they're going to spend. So do some research, find some other products in your area, some other candles out there, and figure out what they're pricing. See where you kind of nestle in. Once you figure that out, of course, you're going to title your products, right? And then add descriptions for your products. And depending on the platform you choose, you're going to have different amount of characters you can use to do that. My advice would be to do some research on YouTube or just on Google, like tips on how to write product descriptions, product titles. You can use some AI tools out there to help you do that as well. And again, I know that a lot of your products aren't even ready yet during this phase, right? You're still testing products, but the more you can start getting these things ready while you're in product development, the easier and faster it will be to come in and fill the gaps once your products are ready, because you've already done a lot of the legwork. This is the point of a timeline. That's why I like to stagger tasks, right, and milestones. It helps you kind of be productive the whole time without being completely overwhelmed at the end. Now, the next thing I would recommend doing is start to work on a newsletter. Many of you might be wondering, what exactly is a newsletter? It sounds like it's old-fashioned. It's a digital newsletter, a marketing list. It's a way to gather emails from current or prospective customers or new customers, and that way you have their email to use a digital newsletter. A service like MailChimp or ConvertKit can then use these email addresses to send out weekly, monthly, bi-weekly newsletters talking about your new products, promotions you're running, questions, surveys, really whatever you want. It's a way to engage with your customers and keep them not just engaged, but aware of your business and your brand and that you're launching new products. It's one of the best ways to convert customers into long-term customers. It's one of the best ways to take first-time customers and turn them into repeat buyers. So newsletters are very, very important. The earlier you get started on this, the better. You might be wondering, why have a newsletter yet if I don't even have a business open, I don't have any products? Well, we're going to get to that, but you can be using social media at this point or starting social media to start announcing your company is coming and the type of products you're going to have. Start asking for newsletter signups right away. Start getting emails, say, hey, I'll let you know when we open. Here's the first set of products we're working on right now. Show them some behind the scenes footage of what you're doing. People eat that stuff up. They love it. I still love it. I've been doing this forever. It's exciting. So engage with your customers. The sooner, the better. Start gathering emails. The sooner, the better. We just touched on it. The next thing is really working on the marketing. There's social media aspect. So start an Instagram account. Start a TikTok if you want. Get a Facebook business page. All these tools, I wouldn't overwhelm with too many at once. Like start one, make it solid, and then start kind of cross-posting different things or posting different content on each one. And then create some kind of social media plan or strategy. In other words, like these days a week, I'm going to post on Instagram. And this day I'm going to do Facebook post. And then this is going to be the topic on week 1 of the month. And this is the topic on week 2. Whatever strategy you want to come up with is fine, but try to have one and stick to it. And it's a way to really start boosting awareness to your brand and your products. And again, that's a great way to get newsletter signups as well, because you don't have to wait until your store is live. You don't have to wait until your products are finished to start getting attention to your brand. Let's jump back up to production. Let's assume that you're out of this initial product testing and development stage. It's now time to launch your first set of finished products. And maybe launched isn't the right word. Maybe it's identify your first set of finished products after testing and feedback from your test group, your first adopters. Now that you have your finished products, maybe it's 8, maybe it's 6, maybe it's 10, whatever that number is, let's start taking some product photos And you can start off basic. You can do it yourself with your smartphone, a DSLR camera that you have, or you can pay for a service that helps you. You can use AI, a lot of ways to do product photos. But I would spend a lot of time on this. I would try to make your product photos the best that you can. Even if you think they're great, get some other opinions. Have your early adopters, your test group, have family, friends, whoever say, this is what I think of them. The product photos are key because it's online, the first impression. It's basically the equivalent of being at a craft show and someone walking up to your booth. So you want to be able to capture them with great photos, and also you want to look professional. Now, after you got your product photos done, I would start working on the administrative stuff of the business. So this is things like identify the email you're going to use for customer service. So instead of, Wade@mycandlecompany.com, it's support@mycandlecompany.com, right? So just create an email that you can use as your generic customer support. And starting off, it might just be yours, and that's okay. But just identify what it is and start making sure you're prepared to handle customer service. Start working on your return policies. Whether you're on Etsy or Shopify, they usually offer some kind of template that you can use and then tweak to your liking. So you can change your company name, your information, or you can Google it. You can get rough ideas on how to create a return policy. And it's going to differ for everyone. Some people accept returns for 14 days or 10 days, and some don't accept returns at all. It just depends. If it's been burned, lit, typically people wouldn't accept a return unless it's damaged or just not burning properly. Some people, if they just open it and don't like the scent, will take it back if it's never been used. And some say, no, that's why you should buy a smaller one first, right? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. You can do whatever you want, but start thinking about your return policy and try to put one together. Shipping. Shipping is one that gets people a lot. If you've never shipped before, you never run a website or e-commerce before, it can be overwhelming at first. But I promise doing it this way and kind of following this timeline will make it seem less overwhelming. But when you get to this stage, my advice is to go get a bunch of different box sizes. 5x5 for small candles, 8x6x6, 10x10x10, 12x12x12. Just get various sizes and start figuring out how many candles can I fit in each box size. That'll give you an idea that when you start getting orders, which box to use. I promise you, this seems tough at first. The longer you do this starts becoming second nature. It's weird at this point. I can get any random order of and I sell all sorts of different products. I sell candles, I sell fragrance oils, I sell wax melts, I sell wicks. Like I could have the craziest order combination ever, and I can almost visualize it every time I get an order, and I just know what box to use. It just comes with experience. It gets easier. But the key is there's no way to really answer what to do about shipping until you know what platform you're using. Are you using Etsy? Are you using Shopify? Are you going to use Shopify shipping? Or are you going to use something like Pirate Ship to get discounted prices if you're not on Shopify? Are you using a third-party service like ShipStation or something? A lot of options out there. My advice is you can always change and improve things later. Keep it simple at first. So if you're running a Shopify website, just start off with the Shopify shipping. If you're using Etsy, get a free account on Pirate Ship and get cheaper labels that way. Point is don't overcomplicate this at first. It's going to stress you out. So keep it as simple as you possibly can. The most important thing is make sure you offer shipping. You have a rough idea what it's going to cost you to ship. And again, experience helps, or you can do a bunch of test shipments, right? You can put in your address and a bunch of random destinations around the country and get an idea of what it's going to cost depending on different weights. So then you just need to know how to box it up with plenty of packaging, packing peanuts, honeycomb wrap, whatever you want to use. And there's other videos about shipping as well. You just start experimenting and see how it goes. If you want to, make some test packages and send them to some friends and family. Have them tell you how it arrived, right? So there's no way to know until you start doing it. Generally speaking, if you package with some bubble wrap, some honeycomb wrap, packing peanuts, or a box within a box, you're going to be fine. But again, just be diligent, take your time, you'll figure it out. Don't stress about it. Taxes, another thing a lot of people stress out about, and can be overwhelming, especially sales tax, depending on your state. But Shopify helps you out with that. Etsy helps you out with that. So worry about that when you get to it, but don't think about it before you do, because you're going to get stressed and burned out. Wait till you get to this point, then just focus on this. Reach out to customer support on Shopify or Etsy and just ask, or go to your local business office again and say, I've never done this before. Be vulnerable. It's okay. And say, I've never done this before. I'm a new business owner. I don't know what to do with taxes. It's going to depend on what platform you're using. But it can be much simpler than people make it out to be. So my advice is just don't panic. When you get to the stage, just ask the appropriate people. Again, ask Shopify customer support, ask an accountant or bookkeeper that you already use, ask Etsy support. People will help you. And if not, there's a ton of resources out there, YouTube videos as well, that kind of tell you what you need to do when it comes to collecting taxes. Long story short is to sell a product, you generally need to collect sales tax depending on your state, and you need a seller's permit in order to do it. You collect the taxes, and then quarterly, monthly, annually, usually for people starting out, you send in that tax money. It's really not that complicated. It's just important to make sure you're doing it. But then I mentioned earlier, be tracking your inventory. One, you need to know when you're low on something, you need to reorder. Wax, wicks, jars. But also it's just good to be organized and have control over your business because it can get out of hand, and then that will also cause some overwhelm. So just try to be organized, stay on top of things, expenses, inventory, all your raw materials, everything, and you'll be just fine. All right, guess what? Last stage of this timeline, at least the business aspect for now, is you're open for business. Of course, the business goes on. This timeline really is indefinite, but for now, you're open for business, and that is a great feeling. So you turn on your website, you go to your first craft show, you sell your first candle, make your first order. It's a cool feeling. You'll be nervous, but it's like nervous anxiety, right? It's fun, it's rewarding, it's satisfying, and it's almost uneasy. That's good. That means you care. At this point, it's exciting. Now you just start rolling with the punches. You're going to learn a lot over the next weeks, months about your business, about your brand, about your processes, right? Figuring out things that work better than others. You'll figure out little systems and processes to put in place, ways to become more efficient, ways to do things differently. This is all post-launch. The exciting thing is you are now a business owner. No longer an aspiring business owner. You are a business owner. That's super exciting. But now I want to give you some post-launch tips. You're open for business, but that is not the end. And really, in many ways, it's just the beginning. So let's talk about some things to help you along your way, to help you grow your business. First is encourage reviews and feedback. You can do this with apps that plug into Shopify, for example. One is called Judge Me. And that is an automatic service that goes out after a customer places an order. They get asked to rate the product and leave some feedback. I use it. It's awesome. But encourage reviews and feedback, even at craft shows. All feedback is great. Negative feedback's even better because you're learning things about your product that you might need to change. Don't take it personally. It's part of being in business. It's okay. You're going to learn, you're going to change, you're going to grow. Another tip that I would give you is focus on seasons and holidays, especially in the candle industry. It's nearly a third of your sales, of most candle businesses' sales, come in the winter and Christmas months, right? A lot of gift giving, a lot of people indoors burning candles. So always be thinking ahead to different holidays, different seasons, and planning different collections and testing in advance. Don't wait to the last minute. I do that a lot. Do as I say, not as I do sometimes. But it is important to be thinking ahead. Consider new scent releases periodically as well. So maybe every quarter you plan to release 3 new scents, or maybe one a month, or whatever. This will change as you get more comfortable in your business longer and longer. But to keep your customers interested and engaged, it's good to roll out new scents periodically. On the flip side of that, if you have scents that are not selling, it's good to pull those back, right? And kind of replace. Take one away, add another. Another thing that's a great idea is a loyalty program. I talk about this in consults all the time as well. Getting customers is hard. Once you get them, you want to keep them. And one of the best ways to keep them is to reward them, acknowledge them, right? So loyalty programs are a great way to do that. Another tip is everyone thinks about product photos all the time, but one thing that's not talked about as much is product videos. So it can be a little behind the scenes of you making products for marketing materials like social media posts. But even on your website and Etsy, you can add little videos of your product as well. And they don't have to be extravagant videos. I'm not saying like dance around and run a full ad, but put your product on a Lazy Susan and just rotate it, go around it with the camera. So they're just getting to see a kind of a 3-dimensional view of your product. Have it like just moving, like show it just carrying it as walking by. Anything to add a little bit more visual effect than just a still shot can really, really help. Another tip I have is to always be testing something. So I know we're out of the testing phase, at least that initial testing phase, but that was just to launch your first set of products. And my advice is to always be having something testing. Make a batch of new test candles, and once a week be testing a new one. Just always have something going, something testing in the back, so that when you're ready to launch new products, you're not scrambling, you're not hurrying, you've got stuff ready because you've been testing all year long. And related to that is don't be afraid to have fun and experiment. Try new things. If you're really ahead of things, try some new waxes if you want. Experiment with new jars. Just always be doing something to improve your business or try to improve your business. Make you a better candle maker. Another tip I have is to keep your promotions random and infrequent. You don't want to ever get into this kind of habit almost of running a promotion at the end of every month. Because what are your customers going to do? they're going to wait to the end of every month to make a purchase, right? So promotions keep people on their toes. They surprise customers, which is fun, but also it's a way to give back to customers and keep them engaged and intrigued, but not overly consistent where they're just never buying anything and waiting for that habitual promotion. Mix it up, be random, but also don't do it too frequently. And then finally, honestly, I mean, this is so important. I know it's kind of cliche, but it's just to keep learning and growing. And try not to ever get discouraged. Again, if you love your first product, you probably waited too long. It's okay that the first several don't turn out very good. Learning and growing is part of the process. It's part of being an entrepreneur. It's part of being a candle maker. It's part of running a candle business. I hope this video helped some in that way to help you grow and learn as you go. And don't forget to check out the resources below. I've got several links to products, materials, supplies, links to other videos, link to my consultations, my website. Again, we sell wicks, we sell fragrance oils. In fact, I forgot to mention that earlier. We sell fragrance oils now and they are killer. They are awesome. And we're gonna be adding more and more and more, of course. But they're great feedback, great reviews. I'm a candle maker myself. I run a candle business. I'm not gonna sell products that I don't think are great. Now, are all of them my personal favorites? No, I mean, you offer variety. I like some type of scents more than others, right? But the point is we got a good variety. They're very high quality, great fragrances. So if you haven't tried them out yet, give them a shot. You can buy samples first, see how you like them before you commit to larger bottles, but that's been a blast. If you haven't checked out the recent video on our fragrance oil launch, it was a lot of fun, so check it out. We've been asked to do that for years, and we finally decided to go ahead and do it. With that being said, if you have any questions or feedback, please leave it in the comments below. Please share this video if you enjoyed it. Please give this video a thumbs up. And again, if you don't want to miss out on any future videos and you love this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel below. It is free. You just hit subscribe, and you'll get notified whenever I post new videos. I will see you all next time, and good luck.